Week 4 of the UFL kicks off in just a few hours, and it is time for Week 4 pick'ems and preview of this weekend's games. Now, of course, this week, I didn't do so great. I ended up coming away 1-3 on the entire weekend with pick'ems. Not a great week, not a great look, but it is what it is. Let's move on and see if I could do better this week, and let me know in the comments what your picks are for this week. Let's go ahead and dive into tonight's game. It is the 0-3 Memphis Showboats in Detroit at Ford Field facing the 2-1 Panthers. Now, of course, we know there is a lot of turmoil with the Memphis Showboats with their coaching changes constantly happen. Jim Turner being the interim coach. Well, there was an LOA situation going on with Ken Hunt, and then he came back for 2 weeks, and now he has stepped down from the team. Jim Turner takes over as a head coach. As of right now, based on their depth chart, which, speaking of the Panthers, the depth chart doesn't seem to mean anything to the UFL based off of last week, and we'll talk about that in a second. But as of right now, EJ Perry is expected to start this game with Troy Williams being the backup. And we look essentially at the depth chart. I don't have it up on the screen because it would be so small and you couldn't even read it. But looking at it, I mean, they're going to be depending potentially on some of that run game with Prince. And then, of course, their wide receivers, Jonathan Adams, D. Anderson, Isaiah Henney, all of these pieces of the puzzle with EJ Perry and Troy Williams are going to come in play tonight to try to see if they can get their first win on the board. But when we look at the other side of the table here is the Michigan Panthers. Now, of course, Mike Nolan put out the depth chart last week and had Bryce Perkins starting, and then ended up not starting Bryce Perkins and ended up starting Danny Edeling, who ended up getting hurt in that game and is now out. The Michigan Panthers have currently tonight Bryce Perkins starting the game. I think this is the right decision. Now, unlike Panther fans and some Panther fan pages out there that I saw were cheering that Danny got hurt, is crazy to me. If your team is not doing that great, it is never okay to cheer for someone getting hurt and being out. I understand this is a coaching issue. Mike Nolan, for some odd reason, was obsessed, or whatever the case may be, with starting Danny Edeling to the team, and that just did not work out. It was a disaster up front last week, but in the end, the Michigan Panthers came out because of the fact that Bryce Perkins did so well later in that game. I think tonight will be that case again. And the big thing is here, with Nate McCrary being the starting running back, Toatua, Jaden Sheridan, those are those running backs. If they can look at that run game again, that is something that we've seen the Memphis Showboats kind of shut down in the past couple weeks with their 0-3 start. Boogie Roberts, look for him to kind of get in that pocket, trying to get Bryce Perkins, especially being a running quarterback. That could be a little bit harder for essentially Boogie Roberts to get sacks like he has been doing. When it comes to wide receivers in the actual air game, you have Jalen Moore and Devin Ross as the two main wide receivers. Malik Turner, Samson Nakua, who is doing absolutely amazing this year as well. I think the key to the game is the Panthers need to get out on front pretty quick to win this game, to keep that momentum going. Now, of course, I'm not saying an 0-3 team has the opportunity to come in and beat the Panthers right away, but the thing is, we've seen with these Friday night games, for some odd reason, one team gets the advantage and just keeps going. A little bit unlike last week with the weirdness of the Arlington Renegades and Birmingham Stallions game. But again, if Michigan wants to take control of this game early, they have that opportunity to do it with Bryce Perkins and that offense. Of course, when we look at the Michigan Panthers defense, Frank Ginda, he is absolutely amazing. You have Kendrick Whitehead Jr., Kaya Nakua, another absolute amazing offensive or defensive player, hoping he can get some more turnovers tonight. That is one thing that has cost Memphis over the 3 weeks is their turnovers essentially happening. So with this one, we're going with Michigan Panthers, who will advance to 3-1 after this week. Then we wrap up that game and we move on to tomorrow's game. The 2-1 Battlehawks is the 2-1 Arlington Renegades. Now, this is a little bit of a different scenario than we saw last year when St. Louis went into that game. And Manny Wilkins came in the second half of that Arlington Renegades game and just dominated. This could happen because Manny Wilkins is their starting quarterback. This could easily happen for the St. Louis Battlehawks in this game. But it's all depending on who shows up for the Arlington Renegades, because it has been a roller coaster ride. We know when it comes to their depth chart, and we look at it, try to zoom in here because their depth chart is very tiny for the Renegades game. I don't know why this is like that. But anyway, so you have Manny Wilkins, Max Duggan, obviously the backup quarterback for St. Louis. And then, of course, on the other side of the ball, Luis Perez getting the start. But they're going to have to rely again and get that running game going. That's the big part to Arlington that has been different this year, that has worked. And so far, when they change up their game style and they go back to the passing game, it's not worked well. Sel Canella has dropped massive passes in some areas of the game. You have Dante Burnett, another player that is doing decent at wide receiver, but there's some flaws there. You have Seth Green, Javante Payton, Tyler Vaughns, all those, and Luan Winning as well. So they've got the star power there, but what's been working for Arlington in week 1 and 2 into week 3 was that run game. They changed it up a little bit and went more with the passing approach, and that kind of cost them in that game against Birmingham last week. They couldn't do anything in the red zone last week. And that's essentially what cost them that game. I mean, it wasn't that referee call that secured the game with the interception that wasn't technically even an interception because of a false start. It was the fact that they just could not drive properly when they had the ball, and essentially they ended up relying on field goals, which was not enough for Arlington. They've got to do better this weekend and tomorrow with playing against a very hot team in the St. Louis Battlehawks. And I mean, Manny's going to look at continuing in Arlington to get that stride going against the Arlington Renegades. So this game, it was a tough pick, but you can call me an Arlington Renegades fan all you want, because I am one. But I am going with them in this game. I think they are going to pull the upset here with the Battlehawks and essentially move closer to the top of the XFL conference. But there is a team on playing that is going to give them a run for their money, just kind of like we saw in the XFL in 2023. And that, of course, is the DC Defenders. But before we get there, we have another game on Saturday. And that, of course, is the Birmingham Stallions heading to Houston for their first time playing at TD ECU Stadium. The 2-1 Birmingham Stallions will face the 1-2 Houston Roughnecks. And quite frankly, again, this is another game that Houston has the opportunity to knock off the top runner in the USFL division of the Birmingham Stallions. If the Panthers can get their game going, they could be in first place after this weekend, and Birmingham could be in second, tied with Houston, which sounds absolutely bizarre and crazy, but it is physically possible here. There's a lot of work that has to be done, though, and I mean, looking at their depth chart, obviously right now, Matt Corral is starting for the Birmingham Stallions, with Case Cookus being the backup, with their quarterback being out on the IR. And then, of course, you have Nolan Henderson, who I think is a great choice for Houston to start. He has been effective last week. We started seeing a more cohesive team when they got their first win last week with Nolan Henderson in the realm. Now, backup quarterback for Houston this upcoming weekend is going to be Jalen McClendon. I like Jalen McClendon. I have his jersey under this Outlaws jersey here when he played in Vegas. But I don't know if we'll see much of him. Nolan Henderson has kind of got his stride. I think this is kind of that point of week 4 to week 5. We're going to start seeing teams make their strides. But in that realm, the Birmingham Stallions did not do great at all in that game against the Arlington Renegades last Friday night and barely won it. They basically lost that game until the winning drive that happened with Matt Corral. If they can continue doing that offense that they did in the last minute of the game and won against Arlington, they will take this game and run with it. But I'm not going to say that this is going to be a one-sided game because, quite frankly, I don't even know if it is going to be one. I think this could be a close game, but in the end, I have to go with none other than the Birmingham Stallions to win this game, to go up 3-1. They'll be tied, if my predictions are right, tied with the Michigan Panthers in first place still after another week has gone by. But again, Houston, despite picking the Stallions, Houston has the ability to do something big here. And CJ Johnson, as much as we all think he should be gone, and this should be the end result, I think this team could turn around if they focus on Nolan Henderson being that quarterback. You got Kiki Chisholm, TJ Vasher, Justin Hall, and then, of course, if they can get Marcus Sims more sped up, or if they did get him more sped up with this offense, that could be dangerous for the Houston Roughnecks. With them getting him from Michigan, this could be a key opponent or key matchup essentially for Houston with Nolan Henderson and Marcus Sims to really show what they are capable of. Not saying they're going to go far, but they could upset the Stallions this tomorrow afternoon, but we'll see. Then we move on to that's none other than Easter Sunday, and it is none other than the 0-3 San Antonio Brahmas versus the 3-0 DC Defenders. This game here, I will tell you right off the bat, could be very exciting. We've got Pardee, who is taking over as interim head coach of the Brahmas. They're currently 0-3. He did very good last week, in my opinion. We currently do not have a depth chart for this game, so kind of just some memory of what has happened so far. I think he did very well last week. I think that they could give DC a run for their money here, but DC, Shannon Harris being the interim head coach for this season with Reggie Barlow leaving, thought a lot of people were thinking that this could be bad for DC. This could be the year that they continue to have a downfall like they did last year. They're 3-0. They're playing at home. And quite frankly, I will say this. I do think there are some flaws with Jordan Ta'amu this season that we've seen drop passes. Not necessarily dart passes, but passes that were throwing over his receivers, short of his receivers, or just not great in context for his receivers to catch the ball and make some big plays. But on the other hand, we also have seen some decent plays from him, and we've seen good plays from Abram Smith. I think this is going to be the key factor to DC this weekend is the run game. They may focus a little bit on the passing with Jordan Ta'amu, but I don't know if it's there yet. Now, if they continue to grow, as I've talked about with week 4, week 5 of these spring leagues, we start really seeing these teams vibing. I think this could be very dangerous for Antonio in this game because DC could go off, and this could be a very one-sided affair when it comes to the DC Defenders versus the San Antonio Brahmas. I feel bad for Pardee that this could be his first official game as an intern head coach, where I know he was acting head coach last week, but taking over the realm. And the expectation and the thought process with this is you don't want to go in 0-4 to your first home game next week. And I think that's where this is going to be maybe some momentum for the Brahmas to get this win, so they are not 0-4 going into their first home game next week. So this game, though, I had to go with the DC Defenders in this one. I just do not think that the style of matchup here, it is very lopsided at this point. There has been a lot of situations happening with San Antonio with their head coach situation, the offensive coordinator situation happening a week and a half ago. There's a lot of things happening, but I think Pardee is a head coach now that could shine, but it is battle of the interim head coaches here, and it is going to be absolutely all out, a great game in my opinion. But in the end, I do think DC gets this and continues their winning streak in the XFL conference and will be number one as we continue to go forward with the season. So let me know your thoughts, your picks in those comments, and we'll see you back here on the channel on the flip side. Have a great one, everyone.